post-training anabolic workout is important to increase your muscle. Why? Hello, I have decided to do some videos backing up or explaining some theories that go on and are talked about within the health and fitness industry, and things that are just spoken about that may not necessarily be right or correct. So I want to start with a theory. Does the post-workout anabolic window exist? Because this is something that's talked quite a lot about in the industry and when you're training and whatnot. Basically, the theory rose from the fact that obviously when you're training and you're wanting to build muscle, every single contraction that you do, repeated contraction, it tears the muscle and basically it's damaging the cross-sectional fibers within the muscle. So in order for them to grow, they should be repaired as soon as possible by stimulating anabolism as soon as possible. So if the correct nutrients are taken with directly after that workout, you should be able to grow muscle. And so the anabolic window has been expressed as being within 30 to 60 minutes post-training. And for this video, I'm going to be talking specifically about protein. I'm going to leave out the carbs for this video because that is another matter on its own. It does go hand in hand with protein. Carbs and protein after training are great, but I'm going to be talking about protein. The first thing I want to touch on is, how is muscle actually built? There's an easy equation. Muscle mass equals protein synthesis minus muscle breakdown. So muscle synthesis is a naturally occurring process where amino acids are actually bound together and it creates a response where it actually generates more muscle mass. Protein synthesis is more elevated when two types of stimulus are placed upon the body, and that can be after a high protein meal or after a workout as well. So I'll be touching on both. Muscle breakdown is the degradation of muscle during exercise. As I said before, repeated contractions kind of damage and tear muscle fibers. So this influences the production of new fibers to replace and repair the old damaging ones. So the anabolic window has been backed up by legitimate sources of reviewed literature over the years, and several studies do actually confirm that nutrient timing is a thing. The 2002 study conducted by Lemon and colleagues can actually back this theory up by stating that the anabolic window, or the time that is best to consume protein, is within this time, the 30 to 60 minutes, as well as the 2013 review by Ivy and colleagues, which actually really places a strong focus on nutrient timing. There have been many studies about nutrient timing and when it's best to consume your protein, carbs, and fats throughout the day. This particular review by Ivy and colleagues, it is legitimate, and looking at it, there's 134 papers within the review that they have looked at and analysed. So there's a lot of correct data in that review alone. However, the same year in 2013, more studies came out, including the one by Schoenfeld, Aragon, and Krieger, basically explaining that the anabolic window may not be as critical as it was once found to be or once expressed to be. The reason being that they did a study and it displayed that only a small to moderate effect occurred for each trial group that was tested, and a sub-analysis led to the conclusion that subjects who showed larger hypertrophic differences actually consumed more protein throughout the whole day. So their daily net protein intake was actually larger. It does make sense to increase protein synthesis activity throughout the day, considering that protein breakdown only becomes an issue when you're in a caloric deficit or you're training fasted. Supplementing with BCAAs can actually help that throughout the day as well, as it does provide you with the extra boost of amino acids that you may need to stop or slow down muscle breakdown throughout the day. The conclusion of the Schoenfeld study was that after analysing multiple trial groups, the perception that consumption of protein within the anabolic window is not as critical for muscle growth. The total net protein intake for the day is more necessary to stop muscle breakdown. As I mentioned before, for muscle growth, it is important to increase your muscle synthesis throughout the day. And I have mentioned that it's most elevated when a new stimulus is introduced. And so those two things were through training or through a high protein meal. Looking at a 2014 review from McMaster University, it states that training increases protein synthesis for around 24 to 36 hours. After that 24 hours, your protein synthesis then starts to fade off again. If you are in a caloric surplus throughout the day, and that's already taking advantage of the so-called anabolic window, and it means that you don't have to then just squeeze in your protein, your most necessary protein, 30 to 60 minutes after your workout. So basically your total macros, micros, and your calories as a whole have to be on point in order for your muscle growth to be most optimum. So exercise does promote a prolonged elevated muscle protein synthesis period, and that can actually, if you're a really crazy freak and have been a very well-trained athlete for a very long period of time, muscle protein synthesis can actually be elevated for as long as up to 48 hours, but that is in a very rare case. The idea that if amino acids are still in the system come training time, then it makes sense that the post-workout meal shouldn't have to be so immediate. And for this reason, Schoenfeld in this study, they kind of proposed that the period in which the pre and post meals should be consumed for most optimum results should be around 4 to 6 hours, depending on the type of exercise that is actually done. For example, you might have your pre-workout meal, you wait an hour, and then you train, that's another hour, so that's 2 hours. So then after your training, you still have a few hours to then be able to consume that post-workout protein. You shouldn't have to just look at the bro science and think that if you don't have that protein after your workout, then your workout's gone to waste. It's not like that. Now, looking at high protein meals as a stimulus, protein synthesis is most elevated for up to 3 hours after that high protein meal, and then it begins to fade off. This only happens when the body is actually depleted for nutrients due to being in a fasted state potentially. Say that your energy has been depleted for around 3 to 4 hours already. For convenience sake, it may be best to then get in that protein within the first hour or so, just because your pre-workout before that training was 0, it was nothing, and therefore the total net calories for that day are also 0, and then within the next 2-3 hours you can still go and have your full meal, so nutrient timing would be more critical here. Overall, I am concluding that it is not the best thing to look at the post-workout anabolic window as such a necessary thing for muscle growth. It's not this tiny window, 30 to 60 minutes, where you have to cram in that post-workout protein, otherwise your workout's going to go to waste. It shouldn't be seen that way. It should rather be seen as a larger window, and general rule of thumb is that if you are getting in your adequate protein throughout the whole day, there's no point in freaking out if you're leaving the gym and you haven't got your shaker with your protein in it, or you haven't packed your protein bar, because there should not be a huge difference between whether you have that protein directly after your training, or if you wait 2 to 3 hours or so after training to get that protein in, if you have already pre-consumed some protein-packed meals prior to training. Considering the fact that the stimuli of a high-protein meal or a training can actually elevate your protein synthesis, it would make sense for the most optimum muscle gains to then maybe try a push-pull legs training split. I don't personally follow a push-pull legs kind of split throughout the week, but I am at the point where I am wanting to gain muscle mass myself, and so I know that I have to increase my calories, increase my protein, and make sure that it is distributed evenly throughout the day. And I do want to hit each muscle more throughout the week. If you train the same muscle again before the protein synthesis has completely faded off, you're going to then increase muscle mass during that time. So I hope this kind of cleared up the idea of the post-workout anabolic window, what it is, how you grow muscle, and why you should not be freaking out when you haven't had that protein straight after your workout. I would love to know what you think of this video. Please let me know what else you would like to hear, or some things that could be proved or backed up if you're not sure about them within the health and fitness industry. I actually love doing this stuff, and I do love researching for my own benefit. It kind of just makes me feel like I actually know what I'm talking about a little bit more. My cat is freaking out right now. But yeah, thanks for listening. Let me know what you want to hear next time, and I will catch you on the flip side. Okay, bye. I'm gonna stop it during resynthesizing. It's actually, I don't know why I'm holding a pen. Overall, oh, I can see my arm in the background. See you next time.